I'm super fired up on this episode on All Things LOCS. We have Lucio Perrina, who is the Chief Operations Officer for Nutre Meals, which oversees over 350 employees. He's going to be talking about scaling, optimizing systems, hiring, firing, basically all the tough stuff that most business owners tend to ignore. And he built this enterprise with his three brothers. They have very successful restaurant chains, world renowned, and we're really excited to have him here today. Stay tuned. Today. So for people who don't know you yet, how do you usually explain what you do without, let's just say, listing job titles?
Without titles, I what I do is I facilitate the growth of businesses, primarily food businesses, in a way that creates enterprise value in the business, and I do that through building people and systems that are built to last without me most of the time.
It's kind of the kicker, isn't it? It's without you. It's doing that without you. Um,
Yeah.
I want to kind of dive into a little bit more of your background. So you're operating across restaurants, meal delivery. Was real estate too, I believe. What did like those businesses look like before systems existed? And then kind of tell us a little bit about your background with all those.
Sure. I mean, it looked like it kind of what you would think, like just living in your mother's basement, like keeping your overhead low, just putting in a stupid amount of time and work and effort, most of the time in the wrong places, but, just sweat equity and just forcing things to work without any real direction or forecasting or planning. It was just try and find the best people you can and like just dragging your knuckles on the floor until you made it work. And the good thing about us and me and my brothers is that we were kind of bred to work hard, so that never bothered us. Like we never really turned away from the hard work, so we kind of leaned into it. Our biggest challenge was to get out of that phase. To not be that, the guy in the work 24/7. We spent way too much time in that phase. I think because of the way we were brought up, the way we watched our parents work, and that we thought that was the right way. So we still I still have a lot of that inside of me, and I have to put it away. It's great to have, but yeah, a lot of times I have to put it away again.
And so I would actually like to dive in there first too, especially since at this recording we got Christmas here in about a week and New Year's, and this is where like a lot of families are getting together. And I've always felt like Italians and Mexicans are basically like they're like cousins of each other in a weird way. Like the Catholicism and everything is just big families, the hard work ethic, and because that's
Yeah.
something that's very common in the Latin community is like physical labor is a standard where it's like you're not doing hard work unless you're at this level. And what
Yes.
you're kind of describing is like, I needed to essentially work smarter, not harder. And
Mhm.
so describe a little bit more about that. When you said we with your brothers, that's also a testament within itself that many people don't work with their family for very specific reasons, but you guys are making it work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the work harder thing. You nailed it though. It's a cultural thing. Like I grew up in an Italian family, so like we were always told to stay together, which at a very young age, like I don't even remember. I was actually asked this today, and I don't even remember a time where we didn't already know that we were gonna be in business together. So like there was never a point in my life that I thought I was going to get a job. It's just like even in high school, like I needed to get the good enough grades to pass. I went to college honestly because my older brother was like, "Dude, you have a 4-year pass. Like just have fun, enjoy it, and then let's get to work afterwards." So there was never a moment in time where I was, we never ever thought that we were going to work for anybody else. Like in my family down the line, everywhere. Most of them are in Italy, but they're mostly restaurateurs. They're in like hotels, private events, weddings, things like that, bakeries, a lot of food stuff, tons of food stuff, a lot of real estate. But I don't not nobody's. It's all entrepreneurs. Everybody works for themselves at different levels. Some very successful. Like I have an uncle that's doing hundreds of millions in weddings a year. So like some very high level, and then some down to a single store bakery. So I've seen, up and down the line success. And I think that's where my dad got the bug, because that was his uncle, that was kind of his mentor. And he brought that over here, and he passed it on to us, and he just has been hammering into our heads. You need to stay together. You're stronger together. You all have different strengths and weaknesses. But as long as you guys stay together, you're a mountain together. Separated, you're strong. Together, you guys are a mountain. So, and that's, I'm going to pass it on to my kids. I'm so grateful that was the case, because it's powerful if you can make it work.
I'm just curious to know, because that sounds like a very great way to have it described, but at any point did you feel maybe any pressure, like along your journey where you're like, yeah, maybe I don't want to do this, maybe there's something else that I'm interested in trying out, but that external pressure, so to speak, did you ever feel any of that, and how did you kind of deal with that, if that was the case?
There was times, like really early on, where it's like, maybe I could get a job. Like I thought, like, one of my aunts said, like, you should be an architect. And that was like one thing that kind of stuck in my head. I'm like, yeah, maybe at some point I could be an architect, especially when you're working. It's like, you just worked your like consecutive 80-hour week and you took home $250, like those things cross your mind, but not really, not in any way that was serious, just like kind of shooting star thoughts, but nothing like that stuck.
When it comes to just a little bit about, we had a conversation a little bit earlier today, and I was telling you that with my own family, I got 13 aunts and uncles on my mom's side, 8 on my dad's side, separated about between 20 and 25 years on both sides. So lots of aunts and uncles and cousins and like second cousins. So just very, very big family, and a lot of them are very educated in the medical field. And it's always blown my mind how none of them ever got together to build something collectively. And what is your advice if there are some families where like, hey, we've been kind of doing things separated for a while, like why don't we come together and do something amazing and be this mountain? What's some advice that you would give to other siblings that are kind of, having that on their radar?
It's hard to say, it all depends on how you were brought up, like each family, and kind of what your mindset is as far as business in general, because there's some people, and you guys know, like they just don't have it as far as like the entrepreneurial spirit. It's like, like you're just better off getting a really great job and kicking ass there, and that's awesome, but if there's a sibling or an extended cousin or somebody that you guys match that energy, I would absolutely, first thing I would say is, it needs to be understood and obviously on paper that, no spouses and other family gets involved. It's us. It's just us, like between our brothers, we were told early on, and it's, and we kept it this way, is that like the wives basically don't get involved. And that was a big deal early on, because there was a lot of pressure all the time. Why doesn't, Blair would be a great hostess, or, Christine would make a great manager. And, we were just drilled in our head, like, no, let's keep it separate. It has to be separate, And I think that really helped the longevity of things, because you could see how things get complicated fast, when, especially legally, God forbid things don't go well. And once the money gets involved, like that's a very small example, obviously. But I think keeping those things separate is important. And I also think that it needs to be clear what the roles are going to be. It can't be like, we're both really good at sales. Let's get together and build, it's like you need to have your own lane, and each person needs to respect that person's lane. You can obviously talk about things, but, respect the skill set and what they were brought to the table to do, but I think it's very important to have not to be doing the same thing, like I'll give you a quick example. Well, I had these 2 friends that I actually put them together, right? They just were connected through me. Both were plumbers. Both were basically the exact same thing. They were both like the salespeople, essentially. Neither of them wanted to be like on the job site. To this day, every single time I see those 2, they're driving around in the same truck. They look at jobs together, they do everything together, always together. So every time I see them, I'm like, you guys got to split up, man. Why don't you guys get on the site? Why don't you guys get on the sale? Go to 2 different job sites. You need to be doing different things, or else you're not utilizing the power of 2. You're you're just overhead at this point. There's two people doing one job essentially, you know? And that's when you start to measure, you know, how many hours did he work today? You know, Angelo left early, you know, but because you're doing the same thing. But if you have separate roles, it's like they require separate things. You need to be able to respect and appreciate that. And it took a while for us to do that. But I think once we did, you know, there was a lot less stress and tension, and we were able to just start focusing on results.
So that's a big thing that we share with the clients that we work with is, you know, leveraging behavioral assessment tools of some type, whether it's DISC or whether it's Predictive Index or Larry Wilson Institute. There's all kinds that are essentially describing the exact same thing. So it's kind of like take your pick, but it's you're very, very true. Like it's, you know, people have different personality styles, a different wiring. And describe a little bit how that looks like between you and your brothers, and what did you guys collectively, you know, build together?
Sure. So we're very, very different. Like anybody who knows us, it's like you guys are really different, you know. And we found our lanes like pretty quickly. It was like obvious which way each of us needed to go. Like my older brother is, you know, he's like the plow in the front. He's also like very good politically, great with like deep high leverage connections. He's a deal maker is what he is. He's like a mini Donald Trump kind of, you know, like same vibe, you know, like he's putting deals together. He's finding the real estate. He's making the deals, you know, he's doing the big stuff, high level. And I'm doing the day-to-day operations, you know, like I'm basically just keeping up with the doors that he's opening. And then my younger brother is like a super hyper networker. So he started in the nightlife space. And he was like the king of Boston, like early on, and he was doing great. He was killing it in that space, but we dragged him out of that, basically. So because we knew how valuable he was as far as, you know, making connections. You know, he's a salesperson and networker. Like if you put him in a new market, like what we're gonna do with him this year, we're opening new markets. We're just gonna drop him in a new market and just say, go to town, you know. And he'll come up with all kinds of different, you know, connections and networking and whatever. He'll build that market in just a couple months, you know. That's where it's magic with him, you know. And neither of us have that. Neither of us try to do that, you know. So we lean into where each other's is good, and we've gotten even better at that now. And we take advantage of it. You know, we leverage, you know, we kind of trade spots. It's like, hey, I think now's the time where it's going to be primarily focused on you based on like where the business is at and this project is at. You know, let's go, and we're here to support you. Whatever you need, we'll support you.
I love that you said all that because, you know, and this is where I think a lot of families get it wrong. And same thing, dude. I'm coming from a family business in the restaurant industry, but you have the business and then you want to treat it completely different because it's family versus, all right, we can still understand what does accountability look like? What do our communications look like? How do we work to make this grow versus, just throw Aunt Judy in as, like you said, the hostess, or she's the you know, the office manager,
the controller.
Yeah,
like,
she's got this fine. And then the employees though are looking around saying, all right, what are we doing here? They don't even know how we work. They think they're the manager or the boss. So I really find that sometimes with these family businesses, people just overcomplicate it and don't say what it needs to be, which is we still have to run this like a real business regardless of your relationship to me in my life. There's just one thing I want to touch on that you said actually at the very beginning that I think is really important. Based on that background of being that entrepreneur, but that hard work ethic that you're getting from your parents that a lot of us have as entrepreneurs, that the people who are not cut out to be don't. When you start looking to cut back, and we're going to spend some time talking about the operations, but you're cutting back on your work hours or the amount of time you're putting in, so the effort you're putting in. Was there any guilt that you associate with that? Because we've talked a lot about that, and even with other business owners, if they go from working from 60 hours to even 50, it's like I kind of feel guilty that I'm not working as hard as I used to be, and I got this leisure time. So I'm wondering if you dealt with any of that, and how did you maybe overcome that?
Yeah, I do. I've gone through different phases of that. Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. Like there's times where you know, you replace yourself obviously as you go. So like my theory has always been, especially being like in the operations side, like I would take the most needed position, I would build it to a place where I felt like I wasn't the best fit for the position anymore, or I was stopping the growth of it. Like if somebody else can do a better job than me, it's time to hire somebody. And So I was doing that a lot, and now I'm left with no job, right? So now I would literally sit in the parking lot of some restaurant, of like whatever restaurant is active at the time, and I would just sit in the parking lot until like 10 o'clock at night because I felt like it was too early to go home. Like that like if I go home now, like what the fuck am I gonna do? Like I didn't get enough done today. I gotta do more work. And then obviously you start to realize like what tasks are high leverage enough, like you can get things done in less time, with things that actually move the needle. So I'm definitely more at peace with it now, but 100% there was an absolute transition there where, it's easy to fall back into that state too, where it's like you just want to dive back into the work because you feel like you're being more productive. You feel like you're doing more, because you're physically doing more. You're mentally doing more like small things, but it's not moving the business forward.
Bullshit work just to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're the hero of your own story. But then once you can identify that, I get like pissed if I find myself doing any work like that. It doesn't last a friggin' week. It's like I gotta get this off my plate fast.
That's definitely one of the things that we, recommend to some of our clients is that like if someone's working, let's just say like 80 hours a week, you mentioned, and boiling it down to 70 to 60, 50, 40, 35. And it's like, well, like what are some hobbies or what are some things that you would enjoy doing that's going to build up creativity? And I just want to take a quick second and just congratulate you, to you and your brother Angelo specifically, because I saw on the social media that he's lost, what was it, like over 100 pounds. You've also taken health seriously.
Yeah, Angelo's down 150 pounds actually. Maybe, maybe he was 400. I think he was 440 at his peak, and he's like 255 right now. Yeah, so
I'll give him a contract with the Giants or something, just solid.
yeah, exactly. Well, he was a football player in college. He played. Yeah, he was good. He was like an All-American offensive lineman, but so he's naturally built bigs, but it is after you let yourself go for a while, that shit adds up quick.
Even for yourself, that was a big thing. Like you and I've talked about even in Florida, where it's like getting when you're saving that time, make sure that you are rededicating those extra available hours into profit producing activities, things that make you grounded mentally, physically, spiritually. Tell us a little bit about your journey on that, because like you've also had a physical transformation yourself and really rededicated into fitness. And what has that done for you, especially in a role like operations where it's a lot of data?
It's done. I can't even put into words like how, like now that you say that, like the thoughts are running through my head. But I think back to who I was, and I was smoking 2 packs a day. Once I got to 2 packs a day, like I was coughing, I couldn't go up the stairs. I was eating like shit, obviously, like picking. I wouldn't eat at all because you're on your feet. Like in the restaurant business, you're just running around. Like you're never really sitting down. It's not like lunchtime, like in an office. You don't even know what time it is. You're just running around. So I was as unhealthy as it gets. Like at one point I was going to the store buying a vape, 2 packs of butts, an energy drink, Zins, and then I would spend like $60 in one stop. I would do that every single day, and I would have everything going at the same time. Like I was a nervous wreck. Like I was fixated with I don't know. I was just a nervous type of person. And it got to a point, what actually kind of turned it around for me was my kids. So I found out that I was having twin boys, and I'm like, this isn't sustainable. You know what I mean? Like I need to get better. We were also opening another restaurant location, and I was aware enough to know at the time, like a lot of the success or failure of this is going to depend on me. Like I can't continue to be like this. It's just not going to work, So I got a coach, actually. I got a one-on-one coach, which is a mutual friend, Jeremiah. Yeah. And he helped me a ton. Like he kind of, I'm a massive overthinker. So he kind of just like untangled what was going on in my head and helped me organize and schedule myself in a way that I could get into a decent fitness routine a little bit at a time. And it kind of just stuck over time. So I was just picking up, one healthy habit, new healthy habit, 3 healthy habits. Next thing you know, I haven't missed a gym in 3 years, like I have a very consistent diet. I meditate at least once a day. But what that does for you in the workspace, I can't even describe. it basically it builds you into a person. So I realized you can make the stress less, right? Like you can reduce stress by having great systems, by hiring good people. But as you grow, you're constantly going to have bigger problems where the stakes are higher, right? And it's always going to create nerves. There's never going to be a time where you have like no anxiety at all, right? So it's like the only defense to that is to create a person that can tolerate and deal with that kind of stress on a regular basis and not really be fazed by it. So that's been my focus, is to build myself into a person that could just take those bullets and just keep moving without without taking any steps backwards or killing myself too much mentally and physically.
Sometimes that is kind of what it takes so very similar. So just for the audience, like, Lucio was someone that like I've called in the past, like, hey bro, I got twin boys too. So just for the audience to know, this guy is, he is like 1 year ahead of me. So I have a little girl that's turning 5, and I got twin sons that are 2, and you got a little girl that's 6, and twin boys that are also 3. So literally a year ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I remember last year, I'm like, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I got this. And you were like, bro, it's going to be all right. You just need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, thanks, man. Appreciate you, bro.
Just get help.
Just get help. Yeah. And
start hiring.
yeah. And I tell you, this year was definitely a rededication back into fitness, trying different things that could work for me. And it sounds like, the energy, the mental clarity, the grogginess, even the money savings of not having to get, $60 every single day, 30 days per month, every single month for years on end. It's like that adds up, So how has that helped you as a dad?
As a dad, I'm more present, kind of the obvious things. I would say I'm more present at home. Physically, I can move around more, like when you're not feeling good, you never want to play, anytime the kids are up your ass, they want to play a game. I say no, now it's yes, let's fucking play, what do you guys want to do? Yeah. Who wants some of this? Yeah, exactly. One thing stems into another. Obviously now it's creating better sleep, which is a bigger deal than I realized, this last couple of years, like how important sleep is. I'm sure once you have twins, you realize the importance of sleep and how it impacts your day-to-day life, yeah, but no, as a better husband, it's encouraged my whole family really to be, to go down this path of health. Even my brothers, they've always been like gym goers and stuff like that, but now everybody is kind of competing in a way, like we are constantly trying to one up each other, and we keep pushing it to the next level, It's been cool. It's been a big part, I think, of the recent success we've been having.
It's interesting that you describe all that, because when you talk about the topic of leadership, it's usually related mostly just to business, right? It's just how to lead a team and this and that. But then most people don't want to factor in, all right, where in my life do I need to step into that leadership role? And for you, for instance, it was all right. Once I found out I was going to become a dad, but then you see the trickle down effect of, hey, this is how I'm showing up for them. Where else in my life can I start showing up and helping people? And almost what you just described there is, how do I start then influencing everybody else around me to want to be better too, right? It maybe comes off as competition, but it's, hey, I'm influencing you now. And I think that's an area of leadership that a lot of people forget. I'm not a manager, so why do I need to work on my leadership skills? Well, you got a family, right? Like, you got that in your life. Mm-hmm. So who do you need to be to support other people? And then when you're looking at actually the leadership aspect in a business, who the hell do people want to follow? And you made an interesting note of, your best employees are those A players that they don't want to follow B player leaders, right? So I'm curious to know, how does that then tie into that aspect? And for somebody who's watching, why do I need to get my leadership? I own the business, or I'm the one that set the vision, so what the hell is a big deal? What would you tell them?
Yeah, this is a major unlock, I think, for a lot of small business owners and I had this mindset. It's like everyone has to kind of go through their own phase of it. But I think every small business owner goes through the phase of, and then other people encourage it too and kind of enable it. Even your own employees, like, oh no, you're the boss. You shouldn't have to do that. You're the boss. That's why you hire people to do the work, right? Which is kind of true, but it depends what you're talking about. Yes, there's people that you hire to do the work, but they're never going to do the work that exceeds the level that you do the work, or that you're able to do the work, or the vision you could cast. You know what I mean? And I've seen that a lot of times. And I went through a phase where I just couldn't find really great managers at my restaurants. It didn't matter what, I couldn't find them. Or even at Nutre, I had this, any leadership type. I really did great with like the ground level people, like the people actually doing the work, right? Like the laborers, like hourly type employees. But I always had trouble with leadership, always. And Jeremiah helped me through that too. It's a lot has to do with self-awareness. It starts with like realizing what you bring to the table as far as leadership goes, right? And how important it is, like you mentioned, to be one step ahead of the people that are working for you. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
But being able to step into that role that other people need you to be, and the aspect too of employees, those managers that you were having trouble working with and finding good people.
Yes, right, okay. Right, exactly. It's just not going to happen. So one person after another, then I would find some decent people, and then they would fail. And then it's like, what the hell did I do wrong? Why did this freaking person leave? And they always give you some reason that you can kind of make an excuse with, and you have comfort in, like, it's good enough for you to accept. It's like, yeah, they said that they had to, they were changing careers or whatever, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really why they left, and you don't really follow up with it, and you justify it in your head that as it's not your fault. But if you're realistic about it, it is. People are just trying to be nice, People leave jobs because of their managers and their leaders, period. Most of the time, I have very few people leave for other reasons. Sometimes it's money. Most of the time it's that, whether it's a direct report to me or it's a direct report to other managers. But bottom line is, once I fully understood that, the importance of that, that's when it's like, okay, I need to be in great shape. I need to be mentally and physically there all the time. I can't have days where, I don't want to talk to people, because I'm an introvert, right? Like at times I don't want to, could be a week straight where I don't feel like I want to even see anybody, and I would just fall into that trap. And, I skip my meetings, and I'm not communicating the way I should. So when you're physically in shape and you're mentally sharp, and it just keeps you on top of all those things, and you're able to sustain that pace for a longer time. And I think that consistency creates and it shows the path of what real leadership is supposed to look like. People trust a consistent leader. You need consistency.
You start doing differently to get better aligned with the managers and find better people that could be the kind of manager that you're looking for?
I basically changed my standard, and I set a higher standard for them. It's like I used to be in this, I used to allow things to happen, and it would be like good enough. That's good enough. I'm okay with that. It's not great, but I'm okay with that. And I don't know if it was like a podcast or a book or something, but something just changed in my mind where it's like, what, that's not okay. And I stopped allowing basically subpar things to happen, and not letting them go, and confronting them right away, being more direct, more vocal, and have more candor with the managers, rather than kind of having the fear of the employee. Oh, what if they leave, and that kind of thing. I'm like, I just kind of drew the line. I'm like, you know what? If it's not the way that it should be, I'm going at it. I don't give a shit what happens anymore. And that, I think, kind of started to change the culture, where it's like now our culture, it's, it has a higher standard, right? Like, we expect excellence. We're not perfect, but we're working our ass off to try and make things great all the time, and anything less is just, it's not acceptable. You're gonna get called out for it.
As you scaled, hundreds of employees, one of the things that I've noticed with business owners where they really struggle with is career pathing. So, like, the leadership can have a vision of like, all right, we're gonna go from 10 million, 25 million, 50, 100, so on and so forth. And sometimes the employees they're like, I don't know where I fit in all this. And actually having a one-on-one with potential leaders, with people who are leaders, and career pathing of like, this is where things can go. Can you walk us through if that's something that you do and how important that is?
Yeah, that's a great point. So my strategy has always been like just be radically honest. Like I've never promised people things that aren't there. But if it is there, I've always been able to see like far ahead. So it's like, okay, this program, I'll give you like just a quick example. We have this. It's like a vending machine, a smart refrigerator program for Nutre, right? So it's like a vending machine. We fill it with meals. There's a digital screen. You could put them in hospitals, gyms, wherever. They pay a fee. Random customers could just walk up to it, buy a meal out of it. We went through a phase of like a version 1, just like a pilot program testing. Now we have the first 2 real fridges. I hired the first actual person for this role, which the kid has a ton of potential. He has a lot of traits for sales. He can manage. He's pretty good at logistics. So I explained to him, like, listen, he's a young kid. This can go a lot of different direction, and here's the path. If we can get this many fridges out there, just kind of showing like the pyramid. It's like, okay, now you're the first hire. So if you could show and prove yourself, we have a history, and we've shown a million times that we want to continue to grow with you and build the pyramid underneath you, right? So this is what that could look like for you. Your title could turn into this. You could, if you prefer the logistics staff, it could go this way. So it kind of gives some options, but kind of just paint the vision of where it could go. I think is important for people, because if they don't see a path forward, then that's not good. And if that's the case, if there is no path forward, I have no problem letting people know, like, hey, this is kind of where this job ends. If that's not something that you're comfortable with, then maybe we could talk about something else. But this is what it is. And some people are okay with that too. They're not always looking for growth.
There's an important aspect to that laying out the aspect of what they have to do to actually get to that role, right? It's not just, I could see you being this and then leaving it at that. Would you outline, like, this is all the stuff I need to see from you to get you to where I think you could be a manager or assistant director, something like that?
Yeah, so what I've done recently is kind of built out like a job description and like a plan together with the person to kind of create more ownership of it for that person, especially if it's a role that really doesn't exist. Like this program in particular, it's brand new. So it's like, at the same time, I want to be able to talk and have like a sounding board with somebody else. But we're putting the plan together, literally me and this other person, maybe a couple other people. We're building it out together and creating a job description around that. And I've also added this like new thing to job descriptions, which has helped a lot, and I think has helped give clarity to staff. It's part of the job description, but it's like, here's your 5 key responsibilities. Here's like 5 to 10 sub responsibilities, but these are your 5 like North Star tasks. It came from Dan Martell, actually. So like, if all else fails, this is your job. And then break it down within a cadence. So daily, here's what you should be focused on. Weekly, here's what you should be focused on. Monthly and quarterly, and really breaking it down that way so people can understand what the hell they should be focused on every day.
I want to kind of continue on that path. So I mean, you're essentially living in the world of operations. What do you believe is the biggest misconception founders have, business owners have, on what quote unquote good ops actually looks like?
I think it's just not seeing what good ops actually look like. I honestly didn't know what good ops looked like until I've had consultants and people kind of show me what it's supposed to look like. So I think it's underestimating the level of organization you need to have and how important leadership is. I think that's in hiring. I mean, the more you think about it, it's hiring, leadership, and structure. If you can nail those 3 things and be great at those 3 things, then I think the sky's the limit.
I have a very interesting perspective, and I do believe it's the right one, but it's one that's not too common. That when you have an operator, they got to be, you said you have to be humble enough to admit that if an employee fails, 90% likely the failure is the process and not the employee, right? So I'm just curious, like, how what do you exactly mean by that? Because I think most people would just say, hey, if the employee fails, like, they screwed up, it's on them, right? And then maybe they did something somewhat egregious, or it was a mistake, but it was a costly mistake, and it's like, you screwed up, what are we going to do? Versus, all right, why did they screw up? So kind of curious to know like how you got to that thought process, and if you could like explain that a little bit, that it makes sense.
Sure. So I think for me personally, like I'm like an extreme accountability, like everything's my fault kind of guy, like probably a little like too much, in an unhealthy way, but that's where my mind goes immediately, So I've always kind of had that thought process, but then you realize over time, like it's true, like there's very few people are capable there, and they're more capable than we leaders and owners sometimes think. I think especially the ones that have like less experience, and they think everybody's stupid and nobody can do anything right. It's like, no, I think they just don't know. They don't have any direction, or they don't know what the goal is, or you're leaving out information. They don't know, you're just, like you're keeping them like on a need to know basis versus, having them be a part of the culture and the team and the whole movement. You know, I don't know. It's hard to explain, to be honest.
Good question for you. How do you know for you when to step in as an operator versus getting out of, someone's way, where you're observing someone maybe struggle, and they kind of have to kind of go through the motions. I worked a little bit in restaurants, kind of like at the beginning of, just like it's one of the people's like first jobs sometimes is just actually being in a restaurant. And you kind of have to go through those reps sometimes, but for you yourself, when you're seeing people that are working directly under you, whether like they're in an executive position or if they're just kind of entry level, what do you look for where you're like, all right, let me step in, coach, or like they just need some reps here?
I'm always trying to coach. I'm searching for opportunities to coach people. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to step in and coach. I think it's not a great thing if you do other people's jobs for them, and then they start to get comfortable and think that that's the way that things can be, which is the hardest thing to train other leaders to do, right? Like training leaders how to teach their staff how to think versus what to think, is a bigger challenge. Like I'll give you just a quick like real life example. Is I have a fairly young and new director, and she's such a hard worker, so excellent, great at her job, just great at everything. But she's so hyper, the way she's fast, like quick, and very intelligent. She's so quick that she can't even, like if somebody has a question, sometimes not have the patience to go through the process of like, do you have any solutions for me? What do you think we should do? She's just boom, here's the answer, because she just wants it done so fast. But long term, that creates obviously not great behavior, and that could pile up on you where people depend on you too much, and it's not exactly scalable. But we're kind of going through that process together, and I'm trying to coach her through that right now.
For someone again that's an operator, I think nowadays we're seeing kind of this AI revolution. It's been like really going on, and there's been some pretty strong case studies where some companies, they go all AI, or they're like really moving away from real people, and it kind of implodes in their face. For you personally, what is that kind of combination, or like or what's that personal education, like you mentioned, kind of working with coaches and consultants of implementing a good operating system, and there's a ton of really good ones, and then also having a strong tech stack to kind of support that as you're scaling and as you're growing. So walk us through a little bit of your mindset on learning new technologies, but also the old school, belly to belly way of doing it.
Yeah.
And that healthy combination for what you're doing, which is, it is very face to face. Like you're feeding people.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. And in my space, it's interesting because, like the restaurants, for example, it's hand-to-hand combat. It's a people game. Technology plays a part in it, like you're always trying to stay up to date with things that could make life a little bit easier, take some things off of people's plates that are a waste of time. So it's not as much of a thing there. Like we're going to handheld tablets, for example, because it streamlines ordering. Like if you think about it, if you're standing at a table and you're bringing an order in on a handheld tablet while you're taking the order, you got that order ticket to the bartender probably 3 minutes or 5 minutes before, or faster than if you wrote the order down on paper, then went over to a terminal, punched it in, and then it got sent to the bartender. You know what I mean? So there's things happening, and like efficiencies are being created just as like technology gets updated, but it's a little more relevant to Nutre, where it's direct to consumer, where it's an e-commerce setup. So we're definitely using more AI right now. We're building out some customer service functions with AI, also like ordering. So when our tech is completely custom for Nutre. So not on the operation side, just on like the consumer side, if you're placing an order or whatever. So we have an app and our website is custom. But so if you go to our website now, we're trying to stay ahead of like, not get behind on the whole AI thing. So if somebody logs in, they can just punch in like, hey, I'm on this diet. I need to stay under this many macros, and I'm allergic to sunflower seeds. Boom, here's your menu. It's in your cart. So I think it's very important not to get behind on those things, because it's moving very, very fast, and you could get smoked if you're not like paying attention, or you have somebody else staying on top of it for you. But as far as operations go, I'm super okay with building things out like the old school way, and I build it that way first because it's the cheapest. There's not a lot of investment, because when you're starting to get into like back end technology, it's a lot of lift to get it functional and working most of the time. So I'm okay with pen and paper, getting everything the way it should be. So by the time you get to the tech, you really know what you need. And you can find the right softwares that you need. You could put the information in because you already have most of it curated. You're not playing from behind, if that makes any sense.
Definitely does. And you being on the topic of just tech and AI, and you mentioned about making sure you have the right thing set up, it's very easy to get distracted by all the new platforms, right? It's, hey, here's this new thing that can help you out. And it's very, and we've had some business owners too, like, hey guys, I want to start using these 20 AI platforms. Like, all right, let's maybe slow it down and see what actually applies to you. And you noted about having a real strong a strategy of just being focused and not getting, so to speak, distracted. And I'm curious to know where that came from. If there's been any detours, shiny object syndrome that might have cost you in the past, where all right, we got to like dial it in on what's working. Run us through that, like just stuff that's happened in the past where it's kind of gotten to the point where we need to get more focused and not go after every new thing.
Yeah, I mean, we collectively, as like a family, we probably have the worst case of ADD that anybody's ever, like, I think it should be studied, like how much ADD that we all have as a family. So, we're constantly like looking for not necessarily a shortcut, but like we've always had this like internal dialogue, joke of like, well, how do we always end up in the hardest businesses? Like any food business is tough. Like, why couldn't we have, just tripped and fell into like, I don't know, something easier with bigger margins and easier, like, because we if we could just have gotten into something easier, we could have made a lot more money, a lot more sooner and faster. So we've taken a lot of different offshoots on, little stupid investments that, we've lost a bunch of money, or, little businesses or other operators that we've tried to invest in. And then when you look back, you're like, we just lost another 3 months. It's bandwidth. It takes focus off. You don't realize how much it takes the focus and energy off of what you're doing until you look back on it later, or you're fully aware of how much capacity it actually takes. Like any time you spend talking about something that's not directly related to the mission is a waste of time, So we kind of just came to the realization that we're food business operators, like this is what we're doing. We're going to focus on these two things. We have a clear path for both companies. And if we can execute on this, everything's going to be fine, and we'll have all kinds of options and things that we could do, either after an exit or, like a partial liquidity event, or where we're cash flowing the way that we think we can. But at this point in time, we're in like hyper growth mode, and the focus needs to be on absolutely nothing else but this.
It's such an interesting thing, because like that's that requires like just so much discipline, and it's good to hear that you guys are being very disciplined, like with food, with exercise, with mindset and everything, because it's true. Like even the SBA has a hard time wanting to fund restaurants, and like, certain business because of the margins. And they do have a higher, failure rate than, let's just say, some other, industries. And so when someone is in a hard position, everything else can look like such a beautiful opportunity. Oh, it's a little bit easier, a little bit more money. Kind of like what you just said a second ago. Like, if we just went here, we would crush it. And
Exactly.
but at the same time, like, how do you guys decide what not to pursue when opportunity can seemingly feel like it's everywhere?
We really just, it's like say no to everything right now. Like that's really, if it's not this, it's a no. If it's not contributing to this cause, which is the restaurants or Nutre, then it's a no. If it can, if it's vertically integrated, if it can boost what we're doing here, if it can add value to these companies, then we'll look at it. If not, it's a hard no. So the hard guardrails on that.
What was that? I'm curious. Like, what was that conversation like? Because I know just a second ago you mentioned like there was some investments, there was operators, there's a couple things that occurred, and truth be told, some people, they have that track record, and yet they still just keep on trying. There's still shiny object syndrome.
Exactly.
Yeah. What was that conversation with you and your team where you're like, guys, like enough is enough? Like, what was that like?
I think it was probably, I think it was just like, it was one last investment that was like, okay, oh, actually, you know what it was? I'll tell you what it was. It was the water filtration company, where it was like the last business that we thought, had a future. We had some experience in solar and sales, and we're like, you know what? We could do this too, like we're well-rounded operators. Let's do this. And it just failed. Like, I'm not afraid to say that we failed. And the reason why, like what we chalked it up to, was a lack of focus on it. We tried to just hire for it and expected them to treat it like it was their own business, and weren't really qualified for it. They didn't have a ton of direction from us because it was a new industry, from us too. And it just failed. And that was right there. That was like the line in the sand. It's like, if it can't get our full attention, there's no point. It's not going to happen, especially a brand new thing. You're not like copy and pasting something you've already done. You're talking about brand new. Like, that's going to take full attention and energy to figure out something completely new. So yeah, that was the moment that we said, like, that's it. We're done.
I am good with this. No, thank you.
Good. Good. All set.
I'm kind of wondering, when we're looking at kind of optimization, that seems to be like such a buzzword that everyone throws around. Like, we need to optimize this, and this, and I do believe it has its place. But for you, what does optimization actually look like, and compare that to a startup operation versus more of a mature operation?
Sure. So optimizing, to me right now, what comes to mind is, everything starts with the numbers, right? So we're looking at a P&L, we're looking at every single line item on there, and we're trying to find where we could pick up a couple points in EBITDA, right? So we're looking at each section of the business. How can we optimize, streamline, make more efficient, cut time out, cut labor, implement some kind of tech that can optimize this one specific department. So I think that's what it looks like in a little bit of a more mature company, which I guess we're starting to become now, versus early days. I don't know if optimization is the right word for it. It's more like keep your shit together, like we weren't even in the numbers early on. It was just like, did we make any money this year, or this month? Like, we didn't even really know, where the margins were coming from, where our costs were. So I think early on, optimization just means like staying afloat and making sure you're in the black. In a more mature company, it's dialing it in, to very specific, line items on that P&L that could translate to EBITDA.
Yeah, there's this like term that's used, especially on kind of a higher level, where it's leaning. It's almost like a F1 just wrapped up, and it's like if you're taking a sports car and you're getting it 1/100th of a second faster, like that could be a big difference between win or fifth on the Grand Prix winning, and or versus like a startup where it's like it's a car that it just needs an alignment, it needs this, it needs a couple things, and and it can actually move. So very,
Right.
very, very big difference there. Um, I'm curious for you two also. When you're talking about numbers, I think numbers, you had a recent post about how sometimes some numbers can be rather deceptive, that there's vanity numbers. What are some numbers that you used to look at that you're like, oh, we're pros, we're killing it, and then now you look at numbers in a different way? What's that kind of psychology change, and how do you view numbers today with KPIs in your business?
Yeah. So, KPIs it's another buzzword, that, you think you're doing it right until you're doing it right. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what these things are, but, revenue is the one thing that we obsessed with, top line revenue, absolutely obsessed, until you go through a year or two where you stop paying attention to the cost. Labor is we look at our two biggest numbers is labor cost and food cost. Those are the two biggest items on our P&Ls in both companies. And not paying attention to those for too long, it becomes harder to reverse and fix, especially as the more employees that you compile over time. So constantly staying on top of those things and making the focus on those numbers, because you could create EBITDA from, both ends, from the top and the bottom, and I think paying attention to the cost and optimizing and being more efficient, I think it can be more important at times than revenue. Obviously, nothing works without revenue, but if the revenue's there and the sales are coming, I think having more attention on cost. I don't really hear many people talking about cost. Do you? I feel like I'm the only one talking about it ever. But yeah, paying attention to that. And as far as KPIs go, one thing that kind of really unlocked for us was connecting everybody's different positions, pay structures, based on the things that make them successful and that will help the company succeed, right? Like creating a really aggressive bonus structure based on, sales in specific states, or, retention, LTV. We just hired a retention specialist, kind of like customer service, but just specifically for retention. And that person is just about to get hired now, and we're going to create a bonus structure that's just tied directly to LTV, so the lifetime value of customers, total number of orders, like that kind of thing. So, all those numbers combined, create a profitable company.
I want to touch on something that you had mentioned, which there's this mentality that a lot of business owners have, which is either I can't take vacation because shit falls apart when I'm not here, or they use it as justification, like, hey, when I'm not in the office, things fall apart and it's your guys' fault. And you asked a question, which is, if you disappeared for 90 days, would the business grow or collapse? What has to actually happen for that business owner to step aside from the business and it actually grow?
You have to hire. So I think the biggest mistake that people make is they wait too long to make a hire, or they're afraid to make a hire because they think it's gonna, they're gonna make less money for a short period of time, right? It's like, well, if I hire more managers, then, it's going to take money directly out of my pocket. But at the same time, that's what's stopping you from growing, right? And that's what's stopping you from being able to take a vacation. So what needs to happen in order for it to grow is you need to have like a fully complete, growth engine. You need to have every single part needs to be in place. I look at it like it's like parts of a car. It's like every department, builds the entire company. And each part needs to be filled in order for the entire engine to work together and continue growing. Like if you're missing a sales director, for example, or a director of growth, or a CEO that's casting the vision. Like right now, if we stepped away, I'm not saying that our companies are all doing that right now. Like if we stepped away, like collectively, we would stop growing. But we're not at the point where it makes sense to hire a CEO yet. Eventually, we probably will. But right now, it doesn't make sense, But I think in order to step away from a company and have it continue to grow, it needs to be a complete picture, if that makes sense. The car needs to be complete, all the parts
Yeah, no,
plugged
no,
in.
for sure, dude. Because then again, it's just people don't do these things, but then want to use that as a justification, and then it's right. It really comes down to ego. Of like, you guys can't do this without me. Versus, all right, who can actually just help you grow and grow? And I
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and then part of it too is just knowing, and you touched on this earlier in the episode. It's just also knowing what are the goals that the company has, right? And it's just we want to grow to this level. You mentioned about your focus, but it's if we want to get to this level, we want to have 20 locations or whatever it may be. It's what do we actually need to do to get there? And even my own parents, we never scaled their bagel shop in Jersey. They never scaled because that exact reason. It's like, well, if we're not there, shit falls apart. It's like, well, you never hired the right manager because you had trust issues, so you just felt like you needed to control it.
Right. Yeah, nothing beats the eye of the owner. That's what I used to hear from my parents early. Yeah, you have to kill that mentality. The faster you can kill that mentality, the faster you can get to actually building a business that has value and that can actually grow. And I think that's right there. What separates mom and pop from people that are actually building companies with value and brands with value. I think that's really like the line that people get stuck at, or the terror barrier, or whatever you want to call it, that they just can't get over the hump. And I think a lot of it has to do with not being able to take a haircut for a little while. Like, yes, you're going to make a little less money for the next 6 months, but that should be a direct correlate. If you made the right hire, it should directly correlate with some higher sales or some cost savings or whatever. You just need to be hiring the right people. You need to be able to identify which people you need to be hiring at which particular time in the business's life cycle.
Yeah, I want to, specifically on the hiring part, because you can hire internally with your own organization, but you can also third party. And one of the third party ones that, it's kind of the space that I'm in is in the coaching and consulting. And what I find oftentimes is that you have some really great business owners that just feel like they don't need help. They want to figure it out on their own. They want to, just use ChatGPT to try to fix everything. And it's like, man, probably one of the better things you could have done is like maybe just get like a business coach or like a consultant, and they can actually do like a creative process to figure out like what you actually need. So you mentioned that a couple times on the podcast so far. Tell us a little bit about like your experience of working with business coaches, consultants, and if someone hasn't done that yet, what's some advice you would give them as they kind of pursue help from that direction?
I think a huge indicator of the success and the potential that you have is the humility you have to understand that you don't know shit. Not only do you not know it all, you don't know shit. And there's people out there that know a lot more than you, and they've already done it. So it's almost like I look at it, it's foolish not to talk to people that could just show you the way. That they could paint a picture for you, create a path for you, and I think that comes at all levels. And there's different types of coaches that you might need at different times in your life. Like I had one specifically for personal development when my health and wellness was a mess, and I really needed to fix that thing first before I could talk about what I needed for the business. But I've had multiple business coaches too, with just so much experience that it's like, and I think that outside perspective is just so eye-opening, and it's just so different than like either your brother or like somebody else within the company or a peer or something giving you that information. I don't know what it is about that like completely outside perspective that just changes kind of the way you receive the information. That's how it's felt for me anyway. It was always just eye-opening meeting after eye-opening meeting. It's like, holy shit, wow, why didn't I think of that? Even if somebody told you the exact same thing, but when you hear it from somebody from an outside perspective, you just take it more seriously for whatever reason because they have no bias towards it, I guess, right?
And it's, there's that saying that, with business owners, they're looking at their business through a keyhole, and it's almost like blinders. Yeah. And when someone else comes in and just calls out some pretty stark inefficiencies, or like, bro, you are sitting on a gold mine and you could double your business in like this amount of time. And they're like, what, where? It's like right here, dude. Like, oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
So it's,
that's a great point.
I gotta say, like, even for us, like that is something that is very fulfilling to me, that when you have those aha moments where, oh, I didn't even look at it from this particular angle, and oh my gosh, like we can really progress are really kind of attack and get those goals closer because of this just various angle that we just didn't really bother looking at. What I like to do is just jump into kind of lightning round, just rapid fire questions. You game for that?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. So just short answers, one word answers, just really, and we're just going to hit you with them. So what is one system that you would never remove in your businesses?
Oh my God, one system I would never remove. Jeez, I don't know. I can't think right now. One system.
What is one hire you waited too long to make? How about that?
Director of operations.
Breaks first when a business is growing too fast.
What breaks first? Management.
What do you think is harder, hiring great people or letting go of the wrong ones?
What's more important than letting go of the wrong ones?
Harder.
Oh, what's harder to do? If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said letting go of the wrong ones. Now I can do that with no issues at all. So I would say hiring good ones.
Graham, get out of here.
Yeah.
What's a rule that you enforce that people initially push back on, but later they thank you for?
I wouldn't say one specific rule, but I think just maintaining a very high standard and not, not submitting to anything less.
What is one metric you look at weekly that most founders seem to ignore?
Lifetime value and retention, I think, is underlooked.
Something that you believed at 25 about regarding business that you completely reject now.
Say that again.
Something that you believed when you were in business at a younger age that you completely reject now.
That I needed to have all the answers.
Good. What's the biggest red flag that you see someone when they say, let's scale?
The biggest red flag. The biggest red flag when somebody wants to scale. Not sure. Next question.
This is going to be the last one, and this is a really good one. What is one leadership habit, Lucio, that quietly destroys culture?
Oh, man. I think there's so many things. There's a million.
Your car until 10 p.m.
Yeah. I think being inconsistent in a manager is toxic. More toxic than people realize in an environment. Nobody knows what where to look. What's the North Star look like? If the leader's not doing it, then nobody is. So I'd say being inconsistent.
I would 100% agree with you that is the one that talk about an organization that shoots themselves in the foot are the people that are wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, let's do this every day.
Yeah, let's just ride this wave and just go up and down.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and you're like,
exactly.
why? Just be on this stuff. Just be
Right.
consistent. Dude, I really love this. I am immensely proud of you, just as a friend and a father, a husband, everything, man. I'm always checking out your stuff, and so from afar, like I just want to say, really just proud of you, and thanks so much for jumping on, man. We learned so much.
Dude, this was phenomenal. Probably could have gone on for, I don't know, if we got like another 2 hours, we can keep going.
We got to talk about Godfather movies.
This is so good, dude. I really appreciate you being on. So high level.
Yes.
Likewise, guys. Appreciate you both. Yeah, no, we gotta go for dinner or something. I feel like we could talk for days if we get into the nitty gritty.
Do it. Lucio, appreciate you, man, and thanks for jumping on. You're awesome.
All right, fellas. Thanks.